Okay, so we're going to enter the train room, as it were. A little bit of background. This layout was actually, if you want to call it that, it's still a work in progress, was actually started back in 1950 by my grandfather for my father, and in fact the original piece of plywood actually sits underneath of here. Of course, this area has changed quite a bit since it was originally built back in 1950. What we're looking at is the yard at Boeville, Union Station on the second level. There's actually passenger tracks underneath. Of course, you have your row homes, and then it goes out of town, and then we have the bridge that goes over to Wykert Hill, and then over on this section, in the background you have, or actually this whole section here is New Bolshide, as we call it, and then over as we cross the river, we come into Newtown. And a lot of the stuff that's on this pike started or came from the 1950 layout. Now, one of the unique things with this particular layout as it sits today is originally it was in a 13-foot by 11-foot room. Therefore, to be able to gain access through the doorway, there had to be a bridge. Close the bridge, and that completes the connections. Basically what there is a light switch underneath the bridge, and that's what turns the layout on. The pike is now powered, as it were. So, let's go ahead and get some of these old locomotives moving. This one here happens to be the only the only engine actually painted for the home railroad, the Boeville Newtown. And they'll get going here in a minute. Of course, it's pulling some old Tyco Rio Grande cars that I had, or that were given to me. Sorry if this is moving a little bit quick, but I'm not sure. This is the first time I've ever done this, so you'll have to forgive me. Over here, we're going to go ahead and start our passenger train, or our freight trains. Now, one of the other more interesting things is this is still a straight DC layout. It is not DCC. And probably in its next iteration, I might decide to go that route. I do have a couple of locomotives that I've converted from DCC back to DC, so I could use them on this layout. One of the interesting things here too is as you look at the passenger control panel, underneath of Wykert Hill is a staging area, basically to make this a semi-point-to-point railroad, even though, as it were at the moment, I can actually sit here and just let the trains run. It is a looped layout. In its next iteration, it'll probably be the same way. I want to do point-to-point plus be able to just run the trains. And I'm not sure if you can kind of see that, but that gives you a pretty good idea as to what the layout actually looks like without everything on top of it. Yes, that is a very old power pack. that came with the original layout. So one of the other things is that this layout is completely lit. In other words, all the houses or all the structures, the street lights, so on and so forth, are all lit. And that's basically it. Like I said, this layout was originally started by my grandfather, and then my father turned around and built one for me, and in fact, part of that is actually underneath the New Bolshide over here. And then my daughter and I, a couple years ago, actually it's been about 5-6 years ago, we completely stripped the layout and put it into its present configuration. And like I said, now I've got this huge basement, and I want to go ahead and expand the layout one more time and actually make it to where I'm standing right now, which is the operating pit. I actually want to make that to where everything is viewable from the outside, not from the pit, because that's originally how it was designed, because of the way that the doorway and all was. So that's basically it. I thank you all for watching, and we're going to sign off. Thank you.